Hey guys, and welcome to I'm Just Gonna Say It, episode number 29 already. Today we're gonna talk about faith. Faith in God? No, not per se, but it depends on your point of view. Let's start out right away. Here we go with episode 29. So, the importance of faith. I never thought I'd ever be talking about this at length with anyone, let alone on YouTube. You see, I've always had this innate disdain almost for organized religion, and in many ways I still do. I believe pretty much all big religions this day and age have watered themselves down into something that actually lulls you into a submissive, almost fatalistic state.
That's it!
Quiet, Lisa. Everyone in the store is looking at you.
They should take a good look at themselves and what their church has become.
Lisa, it's still the same basic message. We've just dressed it up a little.
Like the whore of Babylon?
That is a false analogy.
No, it's not. It's apt. Apt! Don't you see what Mr. Burns has done to this church?
He restored it from knave to narthex.
He supersized the pews for the Zaftig believers.
He put ice in the urinals.
Those are all wonderful things, but they've cost the church its soul. And I, for one, will not be a part of it.
Do you want your hand stamped so you can come back in?
No, I'm leaving this church forever.
As opposed to stimulating you to do self-discovery as it should. It gives a false sense of security where intrinsically there is none, instead of nudging you to jump down the proverbial rabbit hole. Now, I'm speaking in general terms, of course. I'm not saying there isn't or there aren't people who still get something wholesome out of this. But as time went by, all religions lost their edge, as its scriptures were changed time after time, resulting in very confusing texts that almost lost their original meaning and purpose. It is how Christianity stripped itself of Gnosticism and how Judaism got rid of its Kabbalah. But here we are, and I am going to talk about faith. Now, what do I mean by faith, and what does religion mean by it? And more importantly, what did religion mean by it?
What? Wait! I'm no missionary. I don't even believe in Jeebus. Let me out.
Sorry, no can do.
Save me, Jeebus!
Is faith just trusting in God, or whatever you choose to call him, her, or it, and accepting whatever hardship comes your way because the Lord works in mysterious ways? No, and it was never meant as such. You see, it is not God who is deciding to throw all this misery and hardship into our lives, but us. Or rather, our lower subconscious, or if we're lucky, our higher selves. Yes, I am talking about the law of attraction. Although I dislike this title for it, it is tainted by the use of it by the many pseudo-spiritual self-proclaimed gurus, from the West mainly. So when the movie The Secret came out, it heralded itself as the whistleblower of some ancient secret. By now, law of attraction has become a fad almost, with every pseudo-spiritual yuppie declaring themselves enlightened and professing this stuff on YouTube, for instance. Now, I recognize the irony here. And understandably so, by the way, because the premise of it is very appealing, of course. But none of them seem to grasp the story in its entirety, and without failing, they all leave out either one or more elements, rendering the formula mostly useless, or at the very least severely compromised. And more importantly, they focus too much on the how and not enough on the why when it comes to this manifesting. The formula usually goes somewhere along the lines of decide what you want, visualize that you have it already, next forget about it, and you shall attract it. Now, sometimes they add to this that you then have to go out into the world and do stuff to actually make it possible for your wish to come true. Now, this helps, of course, but mentioning it as a necessity is erroneous and mixes up the whole idea behind the principle. While understanding this law is just as important as knowing how to apply it. The former is often grossly neglected, in my opinion, if mentioned at all. Now, the idea of such a working principle within our universe is far from new and has always been there to find for those looking for it in many different philosophies and religious texts. Instead of calling it a law of attraction, I prefer and advise to approach it from the standpoint of the Hermetic. I mean, where do you think these people got it from in the first place? They actually hint towards this in the secret in the opening when they're showing a tablet that is being wax copied by a person on the run, referring to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, of course. So knowing that, why reinvent the wheel, right? Hermetic philosophy contains the law of attraction within its 7 principles. I will go over these in a separate video pretty soon, but for now it suffices to know just these 2. The principle of mentalism, which states that the universe is mental in nature, being a thought in the mind of the all, so to speak. Secondly, that the principle of correspondence, which states that as above so below, as within so without, to perpetuate the miracle of one. Now in this dual world we live in, this principle permeates all aspects of life, including the mental world, of which what we call the real world is a reflection, so to speak. Another nice example is how the universe in many ways is the same as the universe inside our bodies. In the same way, what we think and what our physical world looks like and behaves like mirror each other as well. What you think, you put energy into and thus make more likely to occur. I won't divulge on this too much, as too many people have already chewed out this subject more than enough, I think. Cogito ergo sum, like Descartes said, I think, therefore I am, should have been, I guess, cogito ergo est, I think, therefore it is. Now another example actually comes from Christianity. Just consider these verses from the Bible. There's Matthew 21:22, which tells us, "And all things whatsoever you shall ask in prayer, believe, you shall receive it." Or, as Bijl supposedly put it, anything that you can ask in a prayer, believe that it will be given to you. Now this is basically the same idea as the law of attraction. We find the same idea again in Matthew 7:7. Ask and it shall be given to you, seek and you shall find it, knock and it shall be opened unto you. Or Mark 11:23 and 11:24. Truly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that what he says will come to pass, it will be done for him. Therefore I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And finally, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Now, in other words, don't let society's conditioning limit you in what you think you can do, and instead, test life for yourself. Experiment. These are just a few examples. I think Jesus taught thinking for yourself and finding truth within, period. Not within the Bible, period. Slight difference.
Look, you've got it all wrong. You don't need to follow me. You don't need to follow anybody. You've got to think for yourselves. You're all individuals. Yes, we're all individuals.
Now thirdly, magic or occultism, to which Hermeticism also belongs, basically teaches the same principle. The difference is that within these systems they go about it using the laws of nature in a way more structured and scientific manner, with understanding of its underlying processes. Because the way it is presented in, for example, The Secret, makes it kind of sound like magic, while real magic or occult art actually teaches you are working with fixed laws and principles, and as the name law of attraction already implies. There is nothing magic about magic. Now if you're interested in this, I advise you to read Real Magic by Dean Radin for an oversight of all the scientific evidence supporting this practice. Science supporting magic, you say? Unequivocally. Why don't I know this? Because in science too there is a conservative, close-minded paradigm that rules amongst most scientific journals and scientists. Publication bias doesn't help either, but could be seen as a consequence of the former, of course. But I'm sidetracking as usual. So what did they leave out of the formula for manifestation? Firstly, it is important to realize that manifesting is something we do all the time. You can't escape it, whether we want to or not. What we are trying to do here is making it a deliberate conscious process instead of a subconscious one. In The Secret they say you have to visualize in order to impress the subconscious mind with these images, which in turn will relate this to the universe or God or whatever you prefer. Now this works supposedly because the subconscious cannot tell the difference between real and imagined. Now, as a psychologist, I have to mention here as a side note that a lot of statements about the subconscious are totally unsubstantiated within a scientific paradigm. That doesn't mean they're not of value, of course. So even though channeled information, for instance, and stuff like that of an unverifiable nature can have great value, we also leave behind regular science there, putting one foot in spirituality, as it were. Now, do I mean to say that evidence doesn't exist within these paradigms then? No, it definitely does, but it tends to be on a more personal level, hard to convey to someone else without being in your shoes. Except, of course, when statements are made that are clear-cut verifiable, like tomorrow you're gonna die, or something more positive. Now back to The Secret. In ceremonial magic, for instance, leaving out evocation and similar practices, all the rituals, grandiose gestures and chants are mostly designed to make an imprint on the subconscious mind, actually, which understands symbolism and vibration way better than modern language. This is in accordance with Carl Jung's ideas on the collective unconscious and its archetypes. In addition, it does not understand negative statements like "I do not want situation A" or "situation A must not happen." Such statements need to be transmuted, so to speak, to "I want situation B," which is the opposite of situation A, or "I reject or banish situation A." Yes, reject or banish. This is not the same as saying "I don't want situation A." You see, you push it away, so to speak, instead of attracting it. But this too is most effective when combined with an attracting manifestation to take the place of what you want to avoid. This is rarely mentioned, if at all, by other teachers, as they often lack an occultist background, so that they don't know it simply. In The Secret they hint toward this by saying that thinking in negative statements will attract that which you don't want, or what you resist persists, as they say. But a more correct way to approach this is stating that negative statements simply aren't understood by the subconscious and treated as normal statements. So "I don't want" is the same as "I want," where your subconscious is concerned. On top of that, you have to not only visualize having what you want, but more importantly, you have to feel it. And this is what is often left out as well. Emotions are what give energy to your requests. They are the power behind your words and/or symbols. Say you want a new romantic partner. Now I have to mention here as a side note, you can ask for a partner that fits you, but trying to manifest a relationship with a specific person, while possible, in my opinion violates the principle of free will and should be avoided. And if you do decide to do that, be ready for some karma coming your way. But back to the formula. Besides visualizing yourself with your dream partner, you then have to feel how it would make you feel. Now this is also one of the main limiting factors in what people can manage to attract into their lives. Because after a certain level of it becomes too hard to really feel what it would be like, because the experience they are trying to manifest is too foreign for them. So for people asking, is this stuff really, does it really work, why is no one winning the lottery with it then? This is one of the main reasons. People can't imagine and actually feel what it would be like to do so before they actually have experienced it. Not that that can be trained, of course, but this takes time and most people are lazy. Now in addition, you have to have faith in the fact that you will receive what you are asking for. Or better yet, you actually need to consider it as already received or ordered. It merely has to be delivered. Now at the same time, it is said you have to forget about it in order for it to happen. It goes without saying that this on its own is difficult enough, especially when dealing with strong desires. But a lot of people also find it that these two premises are paradoxical and seemingly impossible to combine. I've had more than one person ask me the question, how can you have faith and forget about it as well? Isn't this a paradox? And it might appear so indeed, but and it sounds paradoxical, but you merely have to change your viewpoint, and forgetting about it suddenly becomes like a natural consequence. You see, it is because you have faith and because you know it is coming, you don't have to worry about it anymore. And forgetting it becomes a natural thing. Just like you might forget about ordering something online, for instance. Forgetting about it then actually becomes a testament to your faith, instead of its apparent opposite. But this faith part is actually harder than forgetting about it, contrary to what most would think. Faith, true faith, is nothing small or frivolous. Say you want to manifest money, because you are poor. Imagine yourself walking downtown, hungry as fudge, with only enough money left for one good meal. You should have no problem or reservations at all in that case to invest that money into something when your intuition is telling you about an opportunity, even though it apparently means no food. After all, you know more will come. Now, in exactly the same way, this means that when you want to have faith in the fact that humans can fly, for instance, which, if accomplished, would really enable you to do so, I suspect, you should have no problem at all then walking off the edge of a tall building, right on from the first try. After all, you know you can fly, right?
Path of God. Only in the leap from the lion's head will he prove his worth. Jump this.
Ah! Indy, you must hurry. Come quickly.
It's a leap of faith. Throw out. You must believe, boy. You must believe.
Now you see what I mean when I say that true faith is quite an accomplishment. I advise you not to try that last experiment, by the way, and if you do, I am not responsible. But do tell me about the results, of course. Now, of course, this faith becomes easier every time you attain a positive result, because then you start having experience backing your idea, instead of proving it wrong or trying to prove it wrong. Because when you start out, you have, like in my case, for instance, 36 plus years of experience contradicting the new belief that you can manifest whatever you want. True faith requires a determination and an almost Faustian conviction, bordering on the pathological, that few can just invoke whenever they want. The word faith in and of itself is actually deceitful, I feel. That is to say, faith implies a belief or conviction, whilst true faith in relation to manifestation is more akin to knowing something to be true or to happen, not believing something to be true or to happen. And there lies the essence and the trap, as it were, of manifesting things into existence. This also means that going out into the world after you have made your request, so to speak, is not a necessity, contrary to what many teachers claim. Indeed, by doing so, you make it much easier for the universe to comply with your request, thereby maybe requiring less effort from you, the manifester. But a necessity it is not. Saying it is akin to saying that there is something the All or God or the universe can do. All that is required is for you to know it will happen. Not believe, but know. If you master this skill, truly master it, then things would theoretically fall into your lap without you lifting a finger. I say theoretically because fully mastering this is something few, if any, have ever accomplished. But if you are truly serious about trying to do this, I advise studying ceremonial magic and Hermetic philosophy, and maybe even considering self-initiation into these or similar practices. But it should never be the main reason to do so, by the way. Rather, it should be an added benefit of a more spiritual path in general, Because in magic too, that is where the focus lies. Now that might sound surprising, but believe me when I say that real magic is not what it seems to be. Lastly, I also want to mention the importance of gratitude. Gratitude for what you have already in the first place, and gratitude for what you know you are about to receive. Because I want to stress that the law of attraction is not about acquiring possessions per se. Such a materialistic mindset only hampers you from understanding the mechanisms necessary to successfully apply the concept in the first place. You can also manifest wisdom, psychic powers, world peace, or just a meal for the hungry guy you saw out on the street earlier today. More wholesome things. According to Kabbalah, manifesting for yourself is actually forbidden. You manifest for others, and that in return will return to you threefold. Now, I'm not saying you should follow that per se, but it is something worth pondering over at the least. All the necessary qualities we just discussed, with faith being the core one, can be developed through meditation, through learning to master or at least detach from your thoughts, seeing them as separate from you, thus enabling you to have more control over them. Not identifying with your thoughts, in other words. But enough about that, and enough for this video as well. I'm going to wrap it up for now, I think. If you like this video and if you have questions about this or want me to make more videos on the more magical, occult interpretation of this subject matter, just let me know in the comments and I will do so. If you like this video, or if you like this channel and want to support me, there's multiple ways to do so. You can buy I'm Just Gonna Say It merchandise in my store, the link is in the description of course, where I have all sorts of cool shirt designs. Definitely check it out. Or you can support me through Patreon. For the price of a cup of tea a month, you can already become a patron, part of Team Big Mouth, as I have decided to call them. Also, if you like this video, please let me know by clicking like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. Lastly, I will be forever thankful if you share this video on social media as well. Someone in your friends list might need to hear this, and you are the one who can make that happen or not. Just a thing to consider. Now in the next episode, more evidence for extraterrestrials, this time about the moon, as well as some more helioviewer footage. The episode after that will be the first of many episodes diving more deeply into the money-free society, a subject which I have touched in another video already, and which is dear to my heart. So, see you guys next episode. Happy manifesting for now. Love y'all, and bye bye.